Well, welcome back to Raised in Alaska. On our last Argo maintenance video, I showed you an easy way to check all your bearings on your Argo. And what I found on mine was that I had 3 that I needed to replace. So I have 2 different kinds of bearings here, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on that project. So if I ended that video abruptly and you're like, whoa, now what? Well, we're finally at the now what part. So we're going to go started on that right now. But the first step is going to be to take the tires off. And what I want to do, I won't get to this all the way today because I'm going to have to go with parts. I want to get all the tires off just to mark the ones that I have to replace. All these tires go in certain places, and so I'm going to write on each tire so I don't forget where they go. So I'm going to call this right 3 because it's on the right side and it's the 3rd tire back. And I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these tires off. I got these 2 on the right side off. One thing I want to point out here is, see that silicone bead right here? Looks like I need to do it there, but that ends up, that belly pan ends up getting pried off there and getting rocks in there. Let me show you what the other side looks like, and I'm going to have to do the same thing to it. So here's the other side. And you can see it's got pooched out. It's full of stuff here. This is the back chain. I'm going to need to take it off so I can get to the next sprocket. And you can see right here I've repaired this chain before. This is a extra link, and here is the connecting link. Generally speaking, anytime you need to do this, you can never ever, they're never on top. I got lucky on this one. And so this is my pliers, and you can see I've ground that groove in there so it grips the chain. I could just put a little tighten on it. Whoops, the wrong place. Right there. Because there's the connecting link thing that I'm going to pull off. Okay, fine. What I can do instead of taking it off there is this one, since it has a connector here, cotter pin, I can take that cotter pin out of it. There we go. Alright, so now that I got the cotter pin out, this pin should go out the other side, and then the whole chain comes apart right there. And then I'll take this front chain off here, because to pull this whole axle out so that I can get to the bearing on the other side, you gotta have both those chains off. So this is like a miracle. Here is the connecting link for the next one. And there's the connecting link. And then we'll pull that connecting link out of there. And so there was half of it, and here's the other half there that goes on the other side of it. And that just comes off. And let's just see. You can still feel, I can feel the wiggle in it still. You can hear it. That should be tight. And it's probably not horrible, but if I'm going to go 30, 40, 50, 60 miles back into the backcountry, I don't want that problem to surface when I'm out there. Okay, so I'm looking for the connecting link here. We got it in neutral, and it's jacked up in the front so I can spin this. And so these are all the pieces of the connector link. We get up here where we can see them. There's 2 spacers in the middle. And I'm missing the clip. There's the clip. I'm going to put that in the parts washer. Okay, I got these chains in the parts washer here. And I left this one, this is a double chain, and I put it in to soak overnight. And I thought, well, that was soaking overnight, I would take one of these other ones and put it in the soaker and just let it soak. So I ended up not taking all the chains off my Argo, which was what my original goal was, what my original thought was, but they weren't in that bad a shape. And so, let that soak there. But this was kind of one of my original plans. I really kind of wanted to be able to clean these up real good. And I'm not going to go too crazy, but I'm going to go crazy enough, I guess. And I could have easily put these on back on my machine without going through all of this, and I've done that before. But as long as I'm this far into it and I have it apart, I want to get everything cleaned up and really good. Get a really good, nice coat of clean lubricant on these. For sure it's not going to hurt it any. So in the parts washer here we have kerosene. Kerosene's a pretty good solvent. And the flash point on it is pretty high, so it's not like it's going to catch on fire, which is always a concern. I mean, if you're using gasoline, which is a good solvent, it is pretty volatile. Since this has been soaking in there overnight, things are pretty loose, and that doesn't take much. That chain looks nice. There, I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. All right. Well, that looks pretty spiffy. All of those need to be replaced. It should be relatively an easy process to pull those shafts out, so let's get that done. Okay, so each of these sprockets has one set screw in it. So now those sprockets should slide. And realistically, the whole thing should just come out right now. Of course, it's never going to be that easy. I want to go eat. Okay. So this is called a slider. We're going to use that to help this thing decide to do the right thing. So I decided to use this one on there because it fits better. So you slide this out and it's just, this is 2 pounds and it just gets things going. There's that axle. Okay, so this is one that was loose. Oh boy. Yeah, you can see that. Here, let's go this way here. Look at that move there. Hear it. Okay, I've taken all the bolts out of this, there, and this one here as well. And I've loosened up taken the axle bolts out the other side, and I've loosened the sprockets, and so it'd be nice if it just pull out, but it probably won't. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Okay, there's that one. Okay, you can see it's wiggling. And so we're going to have to put the slide handle on that. And there's that one. Okay, we're going to take a look. So this is a chain tightener, and the way they work is they go up and they tighten the chain, and to loosen them you have to rotate. So we rotate it this way and you can push the whole thing down. We're going to take a minute and see what might have failed with this bearing. You can see when you turn this one, and you can hear it. Doesn't sound horrible. You can see though that this moves back and forth here just a little bit. That's junky. Look how much it's moving. So we're going to cut that open and see what's inside of it and what might have failed. Ball bearings are all falling out of it. So I guess we'll probably never ever totally know. You can see it's got a band that goes around it here that's pretty thick. And that band has got a groove in it that the ball bearings ride in. And here you can see, I've talked a lot about this. You can see here's the two grease ports, and so you'll have to line that up with the grease zerk, and then it pushes grease directly into the bearing there. You can kind of see the holes there. And then something that holds the ball bearings there, and then all the ball bearings. So I guess we'll never know by the way it came apart. But we have another one here. And this one isn't as bad as the other one, but you can see it moves a little bit. It's smoother than the other one. And when I took them off, I remembered that there was one that was in better shape than the rest that I thought, well, it's not perfect, so I'm going to change it. That's probably this one. That one there was junky, though. He had problems with him. Well, that was worth taking a look at. I don't think we learned anything. It was interesting just the same. Okay, you can see I've taken the first guard off that bearing, and there's dents in it there from me chiseling the first guard off. So I'm going to try to get the second guard off. I've got it cleaned up some so you can see in it, but try to get those guards off. I'd like to be able to see in there without grinding it in half. You can see that's coming off there. We'll wash all that grease out and we'll see what's going on. Okay, if you've ever heard curiosity killed the cat, I had to go a little bit further with this. I went and put this through the parts washer to see if I could see what the problem was in here, and that feels smooth. You can see there's some rust on the inside of it in here. And this probably isn't all the bearings. That's pretty smooth. That one's pitted with, I can feel some pits of rust in that one there. That one's pretty smooth. A little bit of pitting there. And those went inside of this. And they, each bearing goes inside of one of those things. Like this, and then that keeps them going on there. But you can see underneath there, it doesn't look like it's pitted rust, but it's most certainly discolored. And the bearing carrier here has got rust on it. And then this is the other one. And what I did with it is I just cut the sides off of it so you can see inside. So really all you can see is the bearing carrier on both sides of that. And it spins pretty nice in there. It sounds a little gravelly though. It doesn't have grease in it. But it doesn't really look horrible. When I tried wiggling this shaft back and forth, here or this one, there's maybe a hair bit of play in that, but not bad. But again, I don't think there's probably a touch of rust in there, but you wouldn't think, oh yeah, that's rusty right there on the inside of that. And so the bearings end up riding between there and that thing. And so the edges of this here most certainly have rust in it. But it doesn't look as bad as it felt. This is the bearing that just felt horrible. So again, I don't know that we learned a super ton, but it was interesting to take it apart and see what's in there. But it's amazing how little rust is in there and how this bearing would have went soon, probably. It was in bad shape. So that's what we know. Well, it's a new day. I have, as you saw before, I've taken off all the axles I needed to fix. I took them in and I ran them through the parts washer and cleaned everything. And so everything is ready to be reassembled now. And so we're going to work on reassembling. It should be pretty straightforward. Put the axles in, tighten down a few bolts. We probably will not put chains on today because I have another part that I want to put on. I'll show you that here in just a flash. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, here's all the parts. 3 axles, 3 new bearings. This is an aftermarket bearing. So I've been experimenting with them. So you can see that this is a little bit narrower than this one here, but they fit in there fine. It's the same distance this way. And so I'm trying those out. I have 2 on this machine already. This will be a 3rd one. These are actually Argo bearings here. So shafts, these are lug nuts and other parts. Chain parts. These are all the sprockets that'll go in there. Chains, I have double roller chains here and then the single roller chains. This is the bearing flange on the outside, and these are wheel spacers to push the wheels a little bit away from the tub. And so we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, before I put this together, I'm kind of prepping everything here. And this is the axle bolts that'll go in the end of the axle. And I'm hitting those with brake clean because I want to be nice and tidy. And the reason is because I'm going to use a thread lock on them, and I want them to be nice and dry and clean, not have grease on them. On the end of the axle here is where that bolt goes, and it goes in the machine this way, and that bolt holds it in there, so I want to make sure that I get these threads here clean as well. Where the bearing was on this before, there's a bit of a ridge there, so we're going to use a file and just knock that down so it's smooth. Yep. If you prep everything ahead of time, this task should be pretty easy. If you don't prep it, then you fight it, and it can just be a disaster. So it's just easier to spend a little bit extra time and prep everything. First thing I do is I'm going to put never sees on here. I'm going to put it where, this is where the sprockets will go. And sometimes they get hung up if you don't do this, and then it's a pain to get them off. So this is just, because there'll be a point in time where I'm going to have to take this back apart, unfortunately. There always is. And I'm going to put it where the bearing's going to ride. Bearings are notorious for getting hung up on these. So I'm going to put this bearing on so that the set screws will be on the inside here. Oh, look at that. I've already forgot something. I do this every time. There's a flat spot on this bearing, and I want this to be on it. I'm going to put some blue Loctite on this. Now it's snugged up on the shaft, so it'll stay there, and then I'll push it back in to where it's supposed to go. I want to get it seated all the way in there where it's supposed to belong. And that's where it's supposed to belong, right there. Okay, now I can tighten both of those set screws up. Now what I have to do, I slide this part way in here, and then I'll put the sprockets on it before I go any further. And then I can slide it all the way through. So these are where the set screws for the sprockets go. So I'm going to put them straight up and just start this in there. And then I'll put the sprockets on the inside. And I didn't put any anti-seize on the end of the shaft where it goes in the bearing. So I'm going to do that now. So when I do this, I want to make sure that I line the sprockets up correctly. Goes in there. Now the thing I want to do on this is on top of this bearing, on top of that bearing, there is a grease port. Here's the grease port. I want to line that grease port up top dead center because you grease it right there. And so I got to find that grease port. There it is. So now that grease port is top dead center, and then I can put this on. Now when I tighten these up, I'm going to snug them up all just a little bit. I want to just tighten one all the way up because this housing could break. So I'm going to snug them all up. And these are nylon lock nuts on here. Now with them all snugged up, I'm going to go ahead and tighten them up. Now I'll just go in and I'm going to put the set screws in the sprockets and the axle bolt in. And these set screws have a little dimple on them that goes into that axle. I'm going to put some Loctite on these threads as well. And if I look down through there, I can see the hole in the axle, and so that's how I know I'm in the right spot. Okay, with this axle bolt, I'm going to put some Loctite on here. Now, when I put the axle bolt in, it's just going to turn, so I'm going to put this bar in there to keep it turning. It goes in the end of the axle, and this is what holds the axle in. Okay, so now we're going to try to rattle it. Remember before, this one had some wiggle room in it, and it would move, so let's just try it out here. Should be tight. Oh yeah, that's super tight. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it spins nicely. Once we put some grease in it, it'll be even better. So that one's done. We're just going to do that 3 more times. I'm not going to bore you with anything unless there's something magical that happens that you need to see. Well, welcome back to a new day here. What we're going to do today is I'm going to put the chains back in this machine. Right now, I have all the chains except for the very front 2 out. But so by the end of today, we should have all the chains back in this machine. Okay, so you can see no chains in the back. No chains here yet, but I have replaced my chain tightener blocks. And then you can see that there is 1 roller chain up there. So we're going to put that double roller chain that comes back to there next. And when we do that, one of the things we want to make sure that we do, this is kind of where it gets tricky. You can see on the wheel, there's a hole right there. That's so you can put a grease gun through there and grease the zerks on them. You can see here's a zerk, and you want to be able to put your grease gun through here and do this so you can grease it with the tires on. And so one of the kind of cool things you want to make sure that you do is get all of those. I put this one so that it's pretty much dead straight up. I want all the rest of those to be dead straight up, and that way when I park my machine, I can come in and grease every single one of those. And so I want to make sure I get those aligned correctly. That starts in, and I want this to go this way. If that clip comes loose, I want the whole thing to come this way, and it could fall off in the tub. If it goes the other way, it could tear up the inside of this. I'm going to put 2 of these spacers in the middle of it, and so I've kind of overshot that, and then I'm going to put these spacers on there, and then I'm going to push this all the way back, and I'm hoping to be able to do, oh yeah, see, slide that just like that, and then we'll push this one in, there, 1 back here, like that, and then this gizmo goes on there. So this is the clip that holds the whole thing together. Okay, so that clip is on, and now engage this chain tightener, and now the chain is relatively tight. As you drive, this thing will just get tighter and tighter. There, and so there you go, first chain on. So now go to the second chain. I always like when I put these chains on, I like to go from the front to the back, and see as you're rolling those to get the grease zerk holes lined up, you got to be able to pivot somewhere, and if you just try to do the one in the middle, it's just a disaster. So you want to make sure that you do them from the front to the back is the easiest way I have found. Remember, we're top dead center, top dead center, top dead center, And there we are, we got the vice grips on it. We'll work to get that master link through there and get it hooked. Okay, I got chains on the front. Chains on the rear. Gonna put these two tires on, and remember when I said I marked them earlier, that one says left 2, it's upside down, and that would be left 3. The last thing I have left to do in here is I do need to oil these chains. The one thing to note is that I do have a wheel spacer on here. That wheel spacer pushes the tires and then the tracks a 1/4 inch away from the tub, and then the grease dirt goes through here. So I need to make sure that I line that up with my tire. Well, that was a pretty productive day. I got all the chains in. Everything is complete with the exception of just greasing those chains and putting the tracks on. And that's gonna wait for another day. So don't forget to subscribe. We got a little bit left in this video when I come back and do that last little bit. So one of the last steps I'm gonna do here is grease the chains, and I use this product called Corrosion X. This product cuts rust like nothing else. You can see I started this track project by labeling things: outside, left side, facing forward. And so I'm putting them back on the same way I took them off. I started this track project by taking the air out of the tires. I pumped them back up so I could drive it around. But now I have to take the air back out of the tire. Okay, so I use a ratchet strap to get my tracks pulled back together here. There's one bolt, and I want to put the bolt in this direction here, so if the threads come out, the bolt goes this way. It's more important on the inside than the outside. And I'm going to tighten this all the way up. This is a nylon self-locking nut. I'm going to tighten it all the way up so it's tight against the tracks. And I'm going to back it off about a 1/4 turn, because you want that hinge to be able to bend, right? So you don't want to have it too tight. Okay, with the tracks on and tightened on there, I can put the valve stems in. And this is a special low pressure gauge. So I put 6 in this tire. The second tire back gets 7 pounds, and then the next 2 tires will get 5 pounds apiece. Well, there we go. It's all fixed and ready to go. I'm really confident right now that I could take this thing 60 miles into the backcountry, put a moose in the back of it, and bring it 60 miles out. This thing is ready to go. And I'll be honest, so am I. So if I see you out on the trail, make sure you say hi, and I wish you the best of luck.